Do you want to start, Simon?
Hi, Gary. Do you look back on that game as a whole, or do you focus on that first penalty and think it changed things for you?
No, I think I have to take responsibility for the way the game unfolds. I think we made a lot of errors in the game, unforced ones as well, really, which gave Manchester City some really good chances. I thought the second goal, losing the ball how we did, the last goal, losing the ball how we did, the goal straight after we scored, where we're late on the pressing phase. That mistakes against this team can be punished, and they punished us ruthlessly. I'll talk about the decisions obviously with you, but I'm keen to state that the officials have no real part to play in the way the game ends up today. We are fully responsible for the performance and the mistakes that we make to give Manchester City such a lift. But the first penalty I thought was a really poor decision, really poor. So I can sit there and speak about how poor my team were in certain moments with some of their errors, not in application or determination or effort or the way they tried, but just some really poor errors. But I thought the awarding of the first penalty I thought was terrible. I thought, Guardiola probably plays as big a part in the contact with Rayan as Rayan does. He has his shot and his leg's still moving through, and his motion probably creates the contact with Rayan as much as Rayan. I don't know what Rayan's meant to do in that instance, really. He can't vanish. So don't see them given very often when the shot's been hit over the bar and there's just sort of a coming together. There's not... Yeah, it was a strange one, I thought. I thought the second penalty was a penalty. I thought... Surprised how they reached it, though. I thought on field they would give that. But then surprised that it was overturned because there was contact from Nels, but not much. So surprised that it was deemed clear and obvious, but they do reach the right decision, to be fair to them on that one. Potential check on Akanji's handball. I thought not much made of that. When I heard the Wolves fans appeal for it, obviously I was quite away from it, but when I saw the replays sort of on the floor and sort of seems to punch the ball away with his hand when he was on the floor. But as I say, so much for me to focus on within my own group. So for this 3 minutes that I'm in here with you, I'm happy to talk about the decisions and how I see them. But our mistakes and our sloppy turnovers and mean that when you come to a place like this, you can get away with some mistakes against other teams. But we knew when we came here, we needed to try and be as close to perfect as possible. And we fell short on numerous occasions that meant it was a fairly comfortable afternoon for Manchester City.
Gary, we saw in the first game at Molineux the job that Craig Dawson did on Haaland. Obviously didn't have him today. Is it simplistic just to say that made a big difference to how Haaland performed?
No, I thought we were slightly more open, slightly more aggressive, and the scoreline being what it was made it obviously more difficult, made the game more open. Being 2-0 down here fairly early obviously relaxes the place, means that Manchester City don't have to force too much, and we need to try and be a bit more aggressive without the ball. And Haaland can obviously cause you some problems in that. I think most of his chances come from really bad errors from us, losing the ball for the second goal, how we did, before Rodri was able to stand it up for him. And then being late on the pressing phase just after we got ourselves back into the game, to be late on that and allow Foden to clip in behind us leaves Max in a tricky spot. When we're pressing, we need to get better pressure on the board than that. So some errors on our part that gave him some opportunities, and then he was unbelievably clinical, obviously, with them. He didn't miss many. I can't remember any that he missed, but he might have missed one or two. But it felt like every time he got sight of goal, it ended up in the goal. But that's the level that you face here. So if we're going to lose the ball or we're going to be a little bit late on a pressing phase, you maybe get away with it against another side. But Manchester City in May, when they're chasing down their fourth consecutive Premier League title, they're fairly tough to stop, and we were nowhere near at the level to test them, really.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
You talk about the mistakes. You can set the team up however you like, but you can't influence the mistakes on the field. How do you sort of correct that coming away from today?
Yeah, I am responsible. Like, there's not. Yeah, I don't want anyone in here or anyone anywhere to think that I'm saying that was all fine and the players made some mistakes and that cost us. It isn't that. Any mistake that's made is my responsibility because it's come from something that we've worked on or not worked on, or so like individual mistakes are not really. They happen, but they're not an individual's responsibility. They're all of us, myself included. So, a lot of teams have come here and not been able to get a result, and we're added to the list. If we'd have been absolutely perfect today, it still might not have been enough. We weren't, and we ended up being nowhere near good enough to test them or give them a tough afternoon.
Lemina off at half time, was that a tactical thing or any injuries?
No, just felt tightness in hamstring. So he didn't feel like he'd be able to push 100% in the second half. And obviously, with how tough the second half was going to be, thought it was important to make a change. JJ being back gave us the option to get him on as well. So hopefully Mario will be okay. But he felt some tightness in both hamstrings.
More precautionary rather than talk.
Yeah, I hope so. He seems to think so. It would just been a risk to send him back out, really.
Could you squeeze any positives out of the fact that Hee-Chan got a second goal in 2 games and starting to hopefully find it?
Yeah, Pablo had a really good chance as well. We had some really good spells, I thought, with the ball. Created some sort of uncertainty for a good spell in the first half. Shame it was 1-0 at the time, but when we had that really long phase sort of in their half and created a couple of crossing opportunities and Channy around the goal. And then I thought João Gomez and Buba were excellent, like worked their socks off no matter what the scoreline was, kept going, kept fighting. Nelson as well, probably a couple of others, but there were some positives in there. But the bar is incredibly high here, and if you slip at all, they're capable of punishing you. So it ends up being 5-1. We gave them one penalty that I thought was soft, and Manchester City are capable of causing you problems without that help. So it was a tough afternoon, which we potentially knew it could be. This doesn't define any team's season in the league. You come here, you give it your best shot. You hope that you're at your maximum and they're slightly off it. It wasn't the case. We need to get ready for Crystal Palace next weekend.
Hi Gary, you mentioned facing a City team in May when they're sort of going for the title. Are they a different prospect in May, because you've had success against them in different times of the year, obviously this season alone? Are they a different prospect at this time of year compared to playing them in December or January? Yeah,
no, I just think they have obviously an incredible focus at this point. They'll be the same throughout the season, I'm sure. But obviously the history tells you that during the run-in they're fairly tough to stop. That we didn't make them show that today, really, because we gave them a couple, and from once they're 2-0 up and they can take their time with the ball and the place feels comfortable, it's a tough afternoon. So they're always tough to play, but we gave them a couple of lifts, and the game then became really, really tough.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, guys.